Hello, my name's Richard Petty. I work for Trinity College, Oxford, one of the 35 or so colleges at the University of Oxford, and I work in the Access and Outreach team there. As part of that responsibility, we look after relationships with schools and colleges, networks of teachers, students, parents across both Oxfordshire, near to our university, and also in the North East region, particularly in the south part of the North East region of England. And in this short presentation, I'd like to suggest various reasons as to why Oxford's a great, outstanding choice for able, interested, curious, and enthusiastic students. I'm going to keep this brief, so I'm just going to touch on some key areas, really. I'd like to start with Oxford's reputation, which has been forged over many centuries. I'd like to think it's more up to date than just a centuries old at the university, particularly at the moment with the university's prominent efforts in trying to find a solution to the COVID vaccine problem, hopefully with some success. But ongoing, aside from in this particular moment we find ourselves in, the university has a very proud record of research. It's a research-led university. We are ranked #1 in the UK for our outcome in the Research Excellence Framework, which is a key metric for universities to be judged by in terms of funding. We are the most generous provider of funding for lower income students in terms of our student intake, and that's a key emphasis of what I'm going to say over the coming minutes. We believe that Oxford's a very representative place. It's increasingly representative of the communities that it serves, and different regions of the country too. Lastly, on an academic note on this summary, we are the university with the highest proportion of students in terms of those achieving first in the UK. I'm going to use some statistics, but hopefully it's the feel of the university that you're left with after this presentation and will make it an outstanding choice. Now, in terms of being world leading, we are a very old university. Our reputation has been formed over some time. We're delighted in recent years to be ranked the #1 university in the world by one leading survey from the Times Higher Education Supplement. We don't want to rest on our laurels in that respect, but the fact that we've been awarded that #1 spot for the 5th year running in 2020 is, we hope, some measure of achievement of all the efforts by staff, particularly in their research, to keep it in the lead. Of course, league tables and rankings aren't necessarily going to make an everyday difference to people's experiences while they're at the university, but it is a prestigious university, we hope, and that's a prestige that's been gained by centuries of research and centuries of excellence, we hope. Our leading graduates, some of them in very prominent public fields, some of them in less prominent public fields, lead the way for us in terms of some of the impressions that are given about the university at large. We hope they're a good credit to us. They're also a huge population that are spread around the world, some of them more prominent than others, let's say. In terms of being closer to home and in terms of ongoing recruitment to the university, I think the most important myth and preconception that we try to dispel in our work visiting schools, of course at the moment much of that visiting is in online sessions, most important myths to dispel are certainly those that posit Oxford as being an exclusive, elite, posh, let's say, institution. We often ask our students for their opening thoughts, and I do hear that when I go from school to school. We understand that, but we do think Oxford's becoming much more representative of the communities that it serves. To take just one metric of becoming a more inclusive place, one headline indicator is the proportion of students that come from state schools. Now, the speed of travel in this particular metric has been pretty quick. In 2020, 68% of students who joined the university for the first time were from state schools. This has risen some percentage points over the previous 5-6 years. We believe, proportionately speaking, that change has been rapid, but all of us working in accessing and outreach would freely say it's still not where we want it to be, especially if you consider that somewhere between 85 and 90% of students are educated in the state schools. But yes, we think it's becoming more representative, certainly also in terms of a very quick speed of travel on this lately in terms of recruiting from those from ethnic minorities, and also really speedy travel in terms of recruiting students from socioeconomically disadvantaged areas. We do measure all of that in our admission statistics. And likewise with students with a disability and students who are female. In terms of what you can study at Oxford, it's broken down into 4 divisions, which are basically divisions within which all of our subjects are located. Just the 28 standard courses, but these represent something like 250 choices if you think about all the combinations that can be put together. So actually a relatively small field of headline courses for students to come and study with us, but we'd like to think that pretty much all of life is there, apart from a few course choices that may be expected. But most course choices are there, so pretty broad range we'd like to think. We do look primarily about learning and academic ability in admissions and applications. It is a very academic university, and we'd like to think the centre of the student experience is, of course, about learning. You're typically going to find up to 200 students in a lecture, smaller class sizes than most people will be used to from school for seminars and classes. Laboratory work will be a big feature of learning for those who are doing science-based subjects, a plethora of labs and research institutes around the city in Oxford. And a cornerstone of our learning is tutorials, which is very small group teaching, usually between 1 and 4 students, and an academic member of staff, usually in the college that the students are based at, although not necessarily. Now, we think the tutorial system is a real benefit of the way that Oxford students learn. We think it gives a huge amount of resource to every student in terms of being able to give them small group sizes to present things that they've found, whether that's an essay or a problem page for doing a scientific subject, to listen to others, to accept constructive criticism, to be challenged on some of the views that they're putting across. It's pretty individualized learning, and it's arguably more individualized learning than you will be able to see in most universities. Also, we hope it's a very supportive way of supporting the student while she's learning at the university. To complement that, we have some pretty astonishing resources such as libraries. I think we've got more than 100 libraries in the city because every college has a library, and then generally every faculty, every subject, most of them have libraries too. Amazing set of resources. Of course, most people will find themselves in a library at some point. And it's also nice to be able to say that most students doing an undergraduate degree at Oxford probably never have to buy a book at the time they're there because of the provision of resources to borrow. Likewise, in terms of resources that you can see around you in the city, incredible artifacts at the 4 university museums that take a prominent place in learning and further research as well in many of the institutes. Who goes to Oxford? Well, we'd like to think anybody with the potential, commitment to studying, and a talent and an interest in the subject. We certainly want everybody to feel welcome, and certainly, as alluded to earlier and mentioned, certainly becoming more representative in certain ways, particularly the students who come to us from UK state schools and also those from ethnic minorities. Now, there is no ideal or typical Oxford student, of course. It's a huge institution, about 11,000 undergraduates, 25,000 students in total. Really what unites them is academic ability, potential, a learning style that we hope our university way of teaching and learning will fit into their learning style. And within that student body, you'll find such a range of diversity, such an international profile. Teachers are important in terms of helping us make this change. Parents are important in terms of helping us make this change become more representative. And of course, our community itself, our students, are probably the most important single part of the change. One thing that's very easy to say that is perhaps a bit of a surprise to many parents, teachers, and students we come across is to learn that of our UK students, about 1 in 4 students at Oxford are actually on receipt of a bursary. Bursary is a non-repayable grant, and it's not in any way repayable. And the financial support available at Oxford, we think, is very competitive, if not more generous than other universities. To summarise that really briefly, for students with a household income of £27,000 or less, they will automatically, as part of their offer, be offered a Crank Start scholarship should their application lead to an acceptance. That will be worth around about £4,000 to £5,000 to them, and then it will also come with access to funded internships and volunteering opportunities. In addition, students from backgrounds with a household income between 27 and 42,000 will be eligible for a further Oxford bursary as well, ranging between £500 and £2,000 a year, in line with their household income. We also have extra support packages available to particular groups, for example, those experienced in care or those with particular additional needs. So we do believe that in some ways, obviously, the cost of university is a significant question to answer, and the cost of university is generally, broadly speaking, the same across all universities. We do believe, though, that the financial support that Oxford awards to qualified students is extremely generous, and we also believe there are good grounds for believing that studying at Oxford can be less expensive than at some other universities. So, for instance, the provision of accommodation at the university, most students have access to accommodation throughout their time of their degree. Their landlord is usually their college, and not a private landlord, and they'll be paying rent, for example, for term time only, rather than a private landlord who would charge rent year-round. So we do believe there are various reasons why it can be said that studying at Oxford can actually be a less expensive experience than perhaps the old stereotype of it being an expensive place to study might suggest. We do like students to come to us with a passion for their course, for their subjects, and we also hope that our students will be informed by that as they go along by their academic experience. We think studying at the university sets students up for so many opportunities whilst they're there, but also beyond university. We have very competitive average annual starting salaries, which of course you may be aware are used as one form of assessment of universities. Our students have access to a fantastic career service, which is really pretty innovative in terms of the projects the students can get involved in whilst they're at the university and beyond it. In terms of destinations, well, it really depends on different courses and all the different ways in which you can study different options at the university. But if I asked you to identify from this particular pie chart which degree subject you think this would relate to, that would be a very difficult question. If I told you that it was history graduates from a recent year of graduation, then hopefully, even if you can't see all of the different categories of employment there that have gone on to enjoy, you can see that it's pretty diverse and certainly way beyond history in itself, or those who might associate closely with history. Oxford's a collegiate university, like some universities around the country, and what that means is essentially you're a member of the university, you're also a member of the college. And the college is where you live. I work at Trinity College. It's one of the colleges that takes outreach to the Northeast region. But there are 34, 35 colleges that admit undergraduates, and it's a place, really a college is a place to live, eat, sleep, work, socialise. You're generally studying for the degree as part of the university. But what that means on a pastoral note is it generally means you're living in a much smaller community. Trinity, for instance, has a couple of hundred undergraduates. It's one of the medium-sized, small to medium-sized colleges. It's essentially meaning that the 25,000 students across the university, undergraduate and postgraduate, are split down into smaller numbers and living in smaller or perhaps warm communities than being part of an amorphous mass of 25,000 people. It also enables us to look after people and target pastoral support to those who most need it at particular times, and we have plenty of structures in place to ensure that we know how our students are doing, and we check in with them, and we live in communities where we are keeping an eye on each other. It also enables at Oxford you to find your people. You are used to many students who come to Oxford are obviously coming from schools which are much smaller as an organisation, richness to the undergraduate and graduate population here that essentially enables you to find your niche, whatever it is you're interested in. You'll find somebody who's also interested in doing that alongside with you. It might be a particular sport you would associate with the university, like ice hockey. It might be something that's a particularly sort of niche pursuit that you don't think many other people are interested in. We have so many sports clubs and societies across the university, and if there isn't something already catering to your particular desire, then when you're a student here, you'll usually get funding if there's other people who join you in that pursuit. It is a great place to live. It's a great place to have fun. Obviously, in a presentation like this, with the time I have, I'm sorry not to be able to dwell on those aspects more. In overview, the application process is something that we can discuss, and we do discuss with students, teachers and parents in schools, but essentially the key thing to emphasise is there are more pillars to apply to Oxford than to other universities, and that enables us to look at a candidate we think with greater degree of information, for example, by setting admissions tests, by interviewing those whom we shortlist. We have an early deadline with UCAS of 15th of October, so all students interested in applying must use that early deadline. And as would be expected by many, we do have pretty high entrance requirements in terms of A levels or their equivalents. Our offers tend to be in the lowest part, AAA, in terms of those 3 A levels, going up to A star, A star, A. But looking at more pillars of an application, in other words, at entrance tests, interviews, enables us to look very closely at context. And contextual information is used very carefully by the university in having a look at applications that come in, and also prioritising, in some cases, some, in terms of prioritising them in terms of reaching a shortlist. So we offer a place basically based on 7 pillars. For instance, the interviews come in last chronologically in the process, are often assumed to be more important than other hurdles. They're not necessarily. But we look at all of these 7 pillars: contextual data, admissions tests, academic record, personal statement interviews, written work, and teacher's reference. We're looking at candidates in the round holistically at all of these pillars, rather than say just at a personal statement as a written part of the UCAS application. I would strongly urge interested students to apply for this year's unique scheme, basically a programme of sustained support over a few months. Applications for this are coming in for 2,500 places this year on the 2021 scheme, and those applications are due by Monday, 5th of March. So if you're seeing this before then, please do apply to us, and you can find out more details at that address there. I hope in this short presentation I've been able to summarise some of the factors that we think differentiate Oxford. If you'd like to communicate with me about what you've seen in this video, please feel free to email me. The address is there, and likewise you can email or contact my team using those other methods there. Thank you very much for watching this presentation, and we look forward hopefully to seeing you in a school soon, or in terms of welcoming you as an applicant. Thanks very much.